Can't record my end? Gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
Boom.
Hey, Joe, what's going on, Joe? How are you?
Hey, doing well, Cornelius. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
But yeah, if you remember, Joe's newer, so he's just kind of shadowing and kind of getting learning some stuff.
There's a fee for late people, sir. Sorry, sir. There's a fee.
Oh no,
he's right on time.
I was on time, but late on me. What's the fee? I'll see what I can do.
Gotta sing it. You gotta sing a song.
Well, that's easy. I can sing a song. You guys might not like it, but I can do that.
Yeah, buy everybody virtual drinks.
Virtual drinks. I can handle that. That's
virtual drinks on me. Everybody around.
yeah, I got that.
It's very easy. Just turn around, go over to your kitchen, grab a beer out of the fridge. On me.
Cornelius, are you in is that New York City in your backdrop?
Oh man, that's Paris, France. That's Paris.
Oh, Paris, France. Yeah.
No, actually, it's funny thing is I'm actually in Fort Worth, Texas. And
okay.
And I'm in the apartment industry, so having these Zoom calls, somebody say, well, you need a better background because it used to be like a white wall and like this dude, are you in the bathroom? And I said, well, so I had more Zoom me and said, well, you need something I look like. So I went on the Amazon and bought this background.
Oh, nice.
Because before it was like I put like some wood paneling up to get some texture, but the brown kind of blended with my skin, so it was like just a big brown blob. That didn't work. So I got it from Amazon, and so far people like it. I mean, with the lighting, people always think I'm like some kind of penthouse suite when I put my lights on. I like
it looks that way. It does, yeah.
I said maybe I get a little hologram and have a window washer come by every now and then.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty awesome.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, I've seen that. Have you seen those? There's those people that do the where they record themselves like coming in and giving themselves like putting coffee down or something and then walking out and then make the recording their background so that like in the middle of the call they come in and like looks like they're coming in behind them.
Oh really? That's cool.
Some clever stuff out there.
Yeah.
So
I heard like I remember like when they was doing the whole COVID classrooms, kids have like recording of themselves like this the whole time, and but they wouldn't be in class. Like
they weren't even there. That's genius.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Just don't call on me, but I'm here. Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's do it, gentlemen. Yeah.
All right, so let me share my screen here.
My notes. Do this.
Let's see. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right screen.
Oh, sir, what are you watching? What kind of picture you got up? What site is this?
Yeah. Let's see. Screen 2. There we go. Perfect. So yeah, okay. So we're gonna go in. Let's see. So we're talking about some of the background or some of the search filters that I was talking about. Is there a specific market you're looking in?
Let's do Dallas Fort Worth. Let's do Dallas Fort Worth is kind of good because Houston kind of good, but let's do Dallas Fort Worth right now.
All right, let's go to Dallas Fort Worth Costar market. So that's going to give us kind of the whole, greater Dallas Fort Worth area. And then we're looking for multifamily.
Okay.
So we're going to specify that here. Is there like a unit range that you prefer?
100 to 150.
So under 100.
Yeah, under 200. Oh, okay, that's fine.
Under 200?
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah. So we'll do, we're going to do no minimum to 200 units. There we go.
Okay.
All right. So now we have the 4,500 properties that we're tracking information on in the area. From here, there's a couple of options that we can look at. So one is, so you see here, I'm going into the filter section. And one of the things that we were looking at was when that was last purchased. So in other words, we're looking for somebody who purchased during the last recession. And I tend to look at 2000, like January 2009 to December 2010. So that 2-year period. You may, do a little research and go a little broader, a little earlier or a little later, depending on, what your thoughts are. But from here, you can either scroll down, or if you have this button here for more, I click on sale comps. So basically I'm just filtering by the last sale date. And then from here, I'll go in and do that 2009. So we'll go January 1, 2009 through 2010, and we'll do December, and we'll do the end of December. So what this is going to do is just basically anybody who purchased within those 2 years. So now we have 98 properties that were purchased during that last recession, which in theory means that they bought at a discount because there was, not a lot of transactions were taking place during that time. And those that were more of an urgent, like, hey, we lost a bunch of money. It's time to get rid of this property. So there's a lot of deals that were had during that time frame. So this is a list of, here's 98 properties. We can go ahead and put that into list view. From here, we can then go and look at the owners. So in list view is where you get these additional filters to go from, lease comps, sale comps, owners, demographics, changes. So it gives you kind of some additional filters here. And then now I'm looking at owners. And so here I can search by, so this number of properties in search means the number of properties they purchased during that time. So that matches all of our search criteria.
Oh, okay.
So in this case, Rolling Cash Equity Group, they bought 13 properties during that time frame. So they're definitely all about buying at the right time. And they own 28 properties total right now. So, and they're based out of New York. So this would be a good one where, they're an organization, but at the same time, they got a lot of options. They got 13 properties that fit our criteria of under 200 units in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So that might be somebody who's, they're sitting on some equity. Now, mind you, it's a Rolling Cash Equity Group, so they could know what they're doing. What I tend to look for here are the private individuals who only own maybe a couple of properties. So if I go into private and I'm looking at number of properties owned total, so we're going to get away from the number of properties in the search and just say who owns not very many properties as a whole, right? So Live Oak Apartments in Dallas, they only own that one property, 23 units. So that's a single owner who may, it looks like we probably don't have, for some reason, we don't have the LLC. I'm not sure what's going on there, but that's an owner where potentially, they bought right. You might be able to get a deal. They're going to realize some equity, cash out. They can roll it into another property, maybe a larger property since they got 23 units. Might as well cash out and buy a 100 unit property. You never know. You're getting a deal. They're getting a top dollar, and they don't have to worry about going through the process of selling. So these are, kind of a groups where I would say, one unit, one owner, maybe even kind of coming in here and looking for the 2 buildings. These guys that, these people who have, Frank Becker out of California, he only has 2 properties, but he's in California. So that might be an option. He's a developer. So he may have bought land and then built out. You never know.
Real quick, you said developer. So what does secondary type mean? How do you identify that?
Yeah. So so there's a couple of ways. So one would be, our research team actually is one who comes up with that. So they actually will go through and identify based on the organization when we're looking at all their information, what type of a business that they are. So if we see that they're developing properties, so maybe somewhere in our information here, they've bought land and then developed properties, so then we'll classify them as a developer. But then they also are an owner because they own property. So you're never really just a developer. It's usually a developer owner if you're attached to properties. So, and then like individuals, other private. So like this is a gospel mission. So, so they classify our research team when they add these individuals, they classify them at that time. Okay. Sometimes they talk to them, but really it's usually just from our data that comes through. So a lot of these, so that's kind of the things that I would look at as I'm looking at this is maybe people who don't own a ton of properties because they may not realize the market itself. But, Herman He's got 5 properties. He's based in New Jersey. So that's another one I would look at, is people who are not based in this market, because those individuals as well, they may not be tied to it. They may used to live in Texas, but now they moved to California or for other purposes. Maybe the property, maybe they inherited the property. Like here's a trust, the Looney Family Trust, and they have just this one property with 36 units. So that could be a good option too, because that was going to be my next piece was to search for any properties that have trust in the name. Because those are potentially, not always, sometimes it's a living trust, sometimes, whatever it may be, but they may be inherited properties. So really the goal here is we're just trying to narrow down some strategies as to why individuals might be willing to sell. So, basically, if you're looking at trust, the reason I think of that is because you're less likely to have somebody who's emotionally attached to the property, because those people maybe want, somebody who's emotionally attached, they may think that they have, like if you're thinking of like cars, like, Corvette owners, they think they have the best Corvette you've ever seen in your life.
Yes.
Because it's theirs, like, because it's a one of whatever, but every Corvette's a one of whatever. So everybody thinks that it's worth more than it actually is. So the goal is to try and find people who aren't emotionally attached to it for some reason. So that's kind of this process. So we're looking at people who are sitting on equity, good opportunity to kind of find those owners. So that's what this search filter is here. The other another one that I was looking at, if I go back into my filters again, and let's get rid of the last sale date criteria. So I'm keeping everything else. So we should go back to our 4,500 properties. So then I'm going to go into contacts. And under the contacts, I can come in, and I like to do all types. I mean, you could do true owner, but sometimes recorded owner works as well. So like what I would do is come in here and I'll just type in the term trust. So and I just do a search for trust. So any property that has the term trust in the name, in the contacts, is going to show up. So here's 59 properties that have a trust in the name. Now that could be real estate investment trust. So, keep in mind that's not always going to be, individual trusts, but as you kind of come through here and you take a look, you've got the different company names. So here's that Looney Family Trust that we were talking about. Here's the Sunstone Properties Trust, Selby Family Trust, Schultz Harold R Trust. So, as we kind of look through, we've got these living trust, Barber Family Trust, Anita and Oki separate property trust. So, I mean, these are just different properties that are owned by a trust in one way or another.
Is there a way to kind of like segment this, the only trust?
Yeah, if we want to go back into the filters. So I try and stay as broad as possible, so that way I'm not eliminating something that doesn't have. Okay. But if you do want to, you can come in, and if I get rid of that search filter again under contacts, I go back under contacts and I go under owner type here.
Okay.
So if we give this a second and it should populate before I do that. There are 4,500 properties. So now if I go in here, I can scroll down and let's see. There we go, trust. So that'll give you just properties with the owner type of trust that we have set. So now we have 23 properties of the owner type being trust. So like in this case, owner developer regional, apparently that may also be classified as a trust as well. So here's your 23 properties that have a trust ownership. So there's actually quite a few in Dallas-Fort Worth. Usually there'll be like 2 or 3, but if you do the search filter, for any title trust, sometimes other ones will come up because, maybe they'll be classified as owner developer, but they'll be trust in the name. So here are these properties. So now here's some properties. You can see, how many are owned in that trust, right? Like the Gains Investment Trust. So that's, kind of a different thing, Tides Equities. But these other ones, you know, they have 9 properties here, 9 properties there, 6, 4, 3. So these are all just different options where I would, you know, take a look at the properties that they own and see if any of them are interesting to you. And you know, there's, you know, maybe 16 phone calls to potentially get an off-market listing, off-market property. And anytime you get off-market, you know, we're just talking about, you know, they're getting a deal because they don't have to worry about, you know, hiring a broker and paying a marketing budget or doing any of that. But also it's just a done deal. You know, go through your due diligence. So that's another one. Do you have any questions about either of those two strategies there?
No, that was nice.
Yeah. So then, you know, back into the so another one that I would do is back into the we got 4,500 properties. So back into the comps side again. This may be another one where I would look at essentially somebody who's owned property for a long time, you know, meaning that maybe they're aging themselves and it might be time to cash in. Maybe they're getting close to retirement, depending on when they purchased the property. Maybe they haven't passed yet, but they're getting ready to. So, I mean, like, how do you find those? So then I would basically go in and find any property that was purchased prior to, you know, let's just say 2000. You know, so we're going to look at, you know, anything, you know, today, 2000 of today. So really somebody who's sat on this property, who's owned it for 22 years now. So the owner, if it's an individual, likely is, you know, older in theory. Because if they've owned this property for 22 years, you'll see there's 4 pages, 87 properties here. And again, a lot of them are all, like, it looks like all of these are they own one property, one owner, one property. Oh, there we go. So here's some companies, some REITs, some housing partners. So these are some businesses that own these properties. But again, they've sat on these properties for 22 years. So these are, you know, where I would start on this one is I would start at under properties owned. I would start at the people who own 1 or 2 properties and work my way down to the people who have more properties. Because, you know, if you've got 1 property with 5 units, 172 units, whatever, Carol Eade, you know, I don't know how old she could be getting up there in age. So, so that's another strategy, is just looking for people who've owned property for a long time. They might be looking to, you know, get rid of that at this point. And then lastly, without being more specific, I would go into comps. So if I go back out of here altogether, I'm going into the sales tab and I'm looking at sale comps. So this is just purely comps as a whole. I would look at maybe the last year, 2 years. Let's say the last 2 years. Let's go back into Dallas. Dallas Fort Worth. Property type, multifamily. So you've got 1,452 comps. Let's go under list view. And now what I'm going to do in here is I'm looking at sellers. And I want all sellers in this case. And right here, I'm going to start with number of sales in the search. So those people who've sold the most, but then also still have properties that they own. And really what this is going to tell you is that these organizations, they're in disposition mode. They're getting rid of, you know, a lot of times, especially like these REITs, like Blackstone, all these people, they're acquiring properties in a market, and then they're going to dispose of them in that market and move those assets into another market, depending on their research or what they're doing. And so if we can find, here's like a good example would be like Zillow, right? They purchased single family homes. Then they said, oops, this was a mistake. We need to offload these. So Zillow took a huge loss, but they're more concerned about selling off those assets than they were about getting top dollar for them. So all the investors who bought those Zillow properties got a deal. So if we can find a REIT or an investment company who's bought a bunch of properties, and for one reason or another, who knows why, they need to go cash liquid, they need to get rid of them, or they need to exit that market, they're not as tied to making a huge profit as they are getting out and reallocating those assets before they lose an opportunity. So that's what we're looking at here, is those people who are selling. So if you know that they're already selling, if they've sold 7 properties in these last 2 years, but they still own 30 properties, there's a good chance they'd be willing to let go of some of these other properties. So what I would do is then come into like this owner, maybe Ashcroft Capital, and look for, all their properties that they have in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and see if any of them are desirable to you, and then you can reach out and go for that route. So that's another technique that you can do, is just looking for those who are in disposition mode within your market.
Very nice.
Yeah, so that's a good, so that'll kind of help you out in understanding, those larger corporations, because, the individual owner is awesome, but also if you can, reach out to, one of these, Alliance Residential Company or something who's got, 8 properties that they sold, they own 143. I mean, maybe you want to look for something with a better ratio, like 10 of their 16 properties. There's a reason that Exponential Property Group is selling.
Crow is rolling. Crow Holdings. They own 802 units.
Yeah.
Okay.
822 properties.
Okay.
They have 39 million square feet. So they could have, they're an equity fund. But yeah, so you can come in here and you can see properties. We can come in here. You can even see like if Crow Holdings currently has any properties for sale. So we can go under sales. And if I click on for sale, they don't have any actively for sale, but we can see their transactions.
So we can see like how they sold their last couple. Like we can see if they going through a real estate agent or are they using the same agent or not.
Yeah. So here we go. So I just looked at the last 2 years. We can see if they're the buyer or the seller. So in this case, Crow Holdings the buyer. So they've been, so they're selling and buying. So, but we can look at where they're buying. If we look at kind of property type, sale date, true buyer. So and this is just in the last 2 years. So you can see Crow Holdings sold a portfolio. It's probably what this is. Yeah, part of 11 property portfolio. But we can come in here and say, okay, now we go getting into Crow Holdings as the buyer. There you go. So here they are as the buyer. We can come across here and we can see seller origin. So we can see the broker company. So in this case, listing broker company. So that would be whether or not they were a buyer. So in this case, it's a portfolio, which means they probably didn't have it listed with the broker. So basically they do all, looks like all their sales have been, so as the buyer here, so it looks like all of their sales have been like, well, these are as the buyer, off market as well. Crow Holdings, Continental Realty. So you can kind of come through and see, and it'll tell you. So here in this case, the listing broker was JLL, but that was the listing broker. So if you wanted to find their information, you could look at the seller. If we look at Crow Holdings as the seller. There we go. So in all of these where it's Crow Holdings the seller, we're looking at the listing broker. Here you go. So you got Cushman Wakefield, you've got CBRE. So it just depends on the market, I suppose. Because a lot of these.
Would this actually tell me who the Pacific agent was? Wait, tell me that. I'm not just wondering.
If we were to look at a specific comp, we might be able to see who the agent was. So
Okay.
like if I go out of here, let me go in here. And
I
so
just wondering,
say,
like, if I can kind of connect with the top agents and see they can send me properties. Wondering.
yeah, I mean, we can, there's a different way that I can find the top agents, the top brokers in the area. But so if I click on the number of sales here, true seller on 9 deals, Pro Holdings, let's click on that comp detail. So it's going to tell you this information, seller, transaction. So it'll tell us here whether who the listing broker was or the buyer broker if we have that. So in this case, we don't have it. Let's look at the next record. Here you go. Here's your listing broker. So they sold, this is who they were using. Marcus and Millichap, and these are the individuals that were on this list, on this listing.
Okay.
So that'll tell you exactly who. And I think this is, I don't know if this was a portfolio, 372 unit, previously known as the Exempt Summit, was promptly renamed the Drake on Summit, undisclosed price. So this will tell you here as well that sale notes what we have. And then we also notified down below, our market research will tell you when we last updated that information and the verification process. So document inspection, press release, and other. And then this is the actual market manager who did the comp. So if for some reason you have a question about the comp in particular, that's going to be the individual that you're going to talk to.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so that's on that listing. So I mean, we can kind of clip through. There's of these 9 records as I'm arrowing over, and you can get the comp details on all of these properties. So here we again, looks like we don't have broker information on this one. So it just depends on, you know, how well we're able to get a hold of these people. Some of these are just so new that you know, if the sale date was December of 2021,
Yeah.
we're probably still working to verify the comp.
So which way would you go about? 'Cause I got 2 more questions. Main questions. Which way you say you'll go about finding top brokers in the area?
Yeah, so if I wanted to find top brokers, let's go back home again. I always, just by habit, I always just go back home so that way previous search filters aren't still, you know, hanging on there. Just a little trick as you're kind of going through, because sometimes when you click through different sections. So I go into professionals and USA, of course. So this is the professional section. So here, what I can do is I can come in and find brokerages. So the top brokerage, top landlord reps, tenant reps. You know, maybe we want to find, in this case, we probably want to go investment sale brokerage is what we're looking for. And then on the right-hand side, we're going to look at contacts. So here we could come in and say, I want moving, maintenance, landscape, general contracts. So here we want appraiser, so we want brokers. And then here we're going to come in next. We're going to go into market. Let's go to the Dallas Fort Worth market. And then we're going to get results. Oop, let's narrow this down a little bit more.
Who is Jeremy? Go ahead.
Yeah, good question.
So, wrong call, buddy. Wrong call. Joe, come back.
Yeah, it's not me. Okay, here we go. Deal makers. Sorry, that's the section. So back in the professional section on the left-hand side. So if I'm back here, let me just kind of go back in and show you where we went. So from the home page, that's pretty funny though, Jeremy. There we go. From the home page, professionals, USA, deal makers is the section we're looking at. Under deal makers, we're going to then come in here and we're going to look for buyer brokers or seller brokers. So in this case, you probably want sale brokers, right?
Correct.
So if I click on seller brokers, doesn't matter what company. Now we're going to look at Dallas, Fort Worth. So we're going to go into the market. Scroll down, Dallas, Fort Worth. Okay. Who've completed at least, let's say 10 sale transactions. So we're looking for the big, the people who sell a lot, and in multifamily. And you could specify the value of them. You could specify within how long. 10 may be aggressive for the last 365 days, but let's see what the count is. So there's 31 contacts. So let's get the results. So here you go. Here are the brokers, the contacts, and the company that they work for, and the number of deals that this broker sold in the last 365 days as the selling broker. So in this case, like Taylor Snoddy, he's the managing director. So he's probably just listed on every single one of Northmark's listings.
Yeah.
But, a lot of the times you'll see like, Will Balthrop, James Roberts, so you could look at that. So you could look at the dollar point value. So this is going to just tell you who are the top brokers who've done the most transactions. I would probably, depending on what you're looking for, be a little bit more specific. So if I were to come in here and change my criteria, I might be like, I want to find seller brokers. Maybe I don't need 10, maybe I want 3 or 4 or whatever, but I'm looking for somebody who's within your price range, right? I don't want necessarily the people who've sold, a portfolio of 42 properties for $500 million. I probably want, somebody who's looking at, properties, of at least, maybe somebody who's selling only properties that are at least like $2 million. So we're looking for like a size of a property.
Is there a cap or the max of like so it's not people who doing like big A-class properties?
Yeah, I'm not seeing that, and that's why I'm kind of annoyed by this, because that's what I'm trying to find is the ones that are under that amount. So let me see what happens here. Let me see what the count is, as long as this isn't too many. 101 contacts. Let's get the results. What we can do here is, I think, in these filters, let's modify the table layout and see what we can find here. Property sale transactions, dollars or numbers, number of sale transactions, 3 years. Let's do those. These are the top. See what this looks like. So here's your dollar value. So what you can do here is we can take a look and find, this ratio here will tell you. So if you take this, 986 million divided by 9, you're looking at about, roughly 9-10 million a piece. So we're looking for a lower. So here's 21 million, 11 transactions. So that's basically 2 million, roughly on average 2 million a piece on these transactions. So David Farsing from Marcus and Millichap seems to represent some of the smaller multifamilies. Because again, we're specifically looking at multifamilies. So that might be the other thing, the way they kind of do that. We can take this and
is there email available on the email address? Is wondering our the way to reach them?
Yeah, so this email on the left-hand side is going to give you their email information. Brokers, almost every single one of them are going to have their email address.
Yeah,
because they're all
want to be contacted.
Well, they're already they're probably already CoStar clients, so we already have all their information in here.
Am I able to export this?
So if I click here on export data, Boom, there you go. You can figure
Gotcha.
out which fields you want to export and then
Gotcha.
Excel. Now there are limits. So just so you know, when you're in this section, you may exceed limits. So they won't let you pull like, 500 contacts.
Yes.
I think 500 may be the limit. It may be 200, somewhere in there. So there are limits. If for some reason it comes back with that, just go back and add another filter or something, maybe narrowing your scope. It's just a matter of like how many times you do that. We can do this in map view too, so you can see where they're located. So there's 27 companies. This is where all those companies are located, so you know what you're looking at here. We can look at company view, so you can see what there's those 105 people are from 27 companies. So this will tell you like Marcus and Millichap, CBRE, like what's what. But really the big piece for you is just knowing which brokers are transacting the most in multifamily.
Can you go back on the change criteria real quick again?
Yeah. Change criteria. Yep.
Now question, if I put it says office out of Dallas Fort Worth,
Yeah.
right? If I remove that and I put at the bottom and remove that, and at the bottom I put deals in Dallas Fort Worth, will it tell me other people outside of the area?
Possibly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Cause I know sometimes brokers get properties in different cities in different states.
Absolutely. So here we go. Now we're at 68 contacts. So here we go again. So
Taylor rolling.
yeah, so you still got the same Taylor Snoddy, Philip Weigard, but there may be some different names in here. Most of these, again, if I go into map view again, 22 companies instead of 27. So there's a few brokers that are outside of the state.
Okay.
Those brokers that are outside the state, honestly, are probably not going to be super helpful for you.
Yeah.
Because those are like, if they're selling properties in Dallas, those are one-off type situations.
Yeah.
For you, wanting to know brokers is going to be much more related to they just got a new deal and they're going to call you before they start, marketing it or advertising on a broader scale. So in other words, those are the people that you just want to know them. Just like any other brokerage anywhere else, if you just know these brokers and just say, hey, if you get a listing that's matches this criteria that I'm looking for, I would love it if you would just give me a shot at it. Let me know about it right away, because I would love to, potentially get it before, as an off-market opportunity. Because a lot of times what they'll do is then they'll put your name on a list.
Yes.
Like I know Marcus and Millichap does this, where they'll put your name on a list, and when they get a new deal, they send out that to their list before they put it into Costar, before they list it as for sale, because they want to double in the deal.
Yeah.
Right. They want to represent you as the buyer, and then they have the seller. So if they can do that, they make twice as much money. They want to put you on the list. So if you're a potential buyer for a certain property type and you reach out to these brokerages and say, hey, put me on your list, like once you're on Marcus and Millichap's list, it doesn't matter who the broker is, you will get that email notification before it goes live on the market.
Gotcha. Two more searches and I'm done. I guess one before you told us how to find the markets, it's like the best markets that's coming up so forth. And the other one was you showed us how to find the properties that's listed below market rents.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll start with the markets. So under the markets tab here, and this is what's going to give you the general markets and submarkets themselves. So this is like the analytics.
Yes.
So we're going to come in here. I'm going to go to multifamily, and we're going to look within, say, we'll stay in Dallas Fort Worth. So now we're basically just going to say where within Dallas Fort Worth is the right place to invest in. So if I click on Dallas Fort Worth markets, and then I go into submarkets, let's cancel that. It's going to just take us back out. So we'll go into Dallas Fort Worth, and then we'll go to submarkets from here. So here's your all the submarkets within the Dallas-Fort Worth. And now from here, I can go into list view, or I can compare. Compare will just show this on like graphs. So you can select which ones, and it's going to show you graphs for all these different things. So it's valuable, but it can be a lot depending on what you're looking at. So here we go. So we have the list view. So from here, I can decide, okay, you know, what has the most rent growth? You know, that's maybe an area that you're looking at. Maybe you want to look for net absorption, 12-month absorption units under construction, 12-month volume growth, market cap, market sale price. So, I mean, you can kind of pick out what you're looking for. Maybe you want to find the lower priced markets, because those tend to be the most opportunity, because those are usually, if rents are low, owners tend to not raise rents as much or invest in the properties so much. So you might get some better deals out of that. So, you know, you can kind of come in here and take a look at, you know, like here's a low rent and high increase in rent growth. So that might be a good market. That could represent an up and coming market. So if I then went into Irving, now I can come in and say, okay, Irving multifamily submarket, average rents, let's see, market asking rent is $1,215. The market itself is $1,521. Effective rents are $1,209. It's decent concession rates, shows you the different, you know, price points here. So what I can do now, click on rent. Rent per unit, rent by bedroom. So what I would do now is then, so I would come in, and actually I'm just going to open a separate tab so we can go back and forth. Back to these numbers here. So if we know that the average rent is $1,209 is the effective rent, I'm going to come back, log in. And this is the Irving multifamily submarket. Properties, multifamily, Irving, Texas. Irving, Dallas-Fort Worth multifamily submarket. So this is the exact same as this market is outlining.
Okay.
And then from here, I'm going to go into filters, and I'm going to look at average effective rent. So I want to look at anybody who's under market. So if market is 1209, effective rent's 1209, I'm going to come in and say maybe anybody who's 1100 or maybe 1050, under 1050 per unit. So there's 70 properties right now that are under market. Now there could be reasons, right? These could be all studios. So we could get more specific if you wanted to. So we could say, based on this, we just want to look at the one bedrooms. So 1,079 is the one bedrooms, because like this is average for all these different types. So maybe a property only has studios. They're definitely going to be under that. So if I say 1,079 is the one bedroom, I'm going to look for anything that's, you know, under 950 maybe for one bedrooms. And there's 75 properties that are under 950 for a one bedroom unit. So there's maybe, you know, so they're under the market by a couple hundred. We could even narrow that down more by going even lower. So maybe we want to say under 900. And now we're at 58. You may want to make sure that you put in here, actually, maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to say over 600 because there may be some of these that we don't have data on. 56. So now you can come in. Here's one that's actually listed for sale that's under market rent. So these are just, you know, value add, right? So asking rent 1,086. It doesn't add up. Oh yeah, because it's going to go with actual rents. So here's your 1 bedrooms, 770. These are estimates. 1,045.
Is this data got inputted from apartment.com, or where's this data come from?
This is an estimate. So when they're red, it's not from apartments.com. That means that they're an estimate. But somewhere
It says the OM is locked. How do I unlock the OM? Just wondering.
the offering memorandum.
Yeah, because I seen it said it had the option to click on the OM, but it was locked.
Well, let me go. Is that on this one?
Yes.
So as an employee of CoStar, I cannot open it. I can't unlock it because that's our secure data room. So if you as an individual were looking at this and you clicked on that offering memorandum, you'll get a pop-up box. This is the data room. So this is just letting you know your content information can be shared with them. But if I click on offering memorandum, CoStar employees are not authorized to access this. But if you click on it, it either is one of, so they have 3 options when they're doing this. So just for note, if you have a property that you're trying to sell at some point down the road, CoStar, we have a bunch of marketing, LoopNet, all that stuff, but also on this side, there's a data room. So you can actually specify so that anybody who clicks on this, you can either do registration only, meaning that when you click on it, they're going to get a notification that says Cornelius Cannon looked at this property on this date, download this information. They may also have a non-disclosure agreement that you have to electronically sign. So it's a standard non-disclosure that says, like, if you're going to click on this and get their financials, you're not going to share that with anybody. So when you virtually sign that, and then you'll have access to those documents. So it's basically just a way for them to control who's accessing this. If they want to just know, hey, you can look at the offering memorandum, but we want to know who's looking at it. Correct. Because, you know, they want to know who's interested. Or they say, oh, we want you to sign a non-disclosure before you go in there, an NDA, then they'll have you do that. So you can do that. Sometimes they'll have you sign an NDA and then they have to call you before they'll then click a button to release access to it. So it's just a way for them to, the seller to kind of control where that data is going. It's there, it's available. They just want to make sure that, you know, who's looking at it. So you, Cornelius Cannon, can click on that and it'll tell you at that point whether you need to sign something or it's just going to give you access. But as a CoStar employee, I do not have access to that because that's all proprietary information for the seller, and they don't want it in CoStar, and so they restrict us so that we keep it that way.
Okay.
But so if I'm looking at these properties now, I can go into list view. Again, now we can come in and modify the table. We can look at, you know, see if there's rents in here. Let's do that. Building name. I don't really care about much of this stuff. I just want to know rent per unit. Asking rent, effective rent. And then I want to know what the these pieces apply.
Effective rent is what they're getting.
Yeah. So in other words, if there's concessions, maybe they get a month free or a $200, you know, off, that kind of thing. So here we go. So now we can look at this. Now we're looking at the average and effective rents. So here's these properties. So like in this case, 1-bedroom units, they're getting 600, 652. So these could be, I don't know, these are very low. take a look at that. Units. So this is all estimates, but you know, they probably just haven't been vacant for like forever for some reason, because there's only 20 something. But this would definitely be a property where if these rents are actual true, that would be huge opportunity there. So we can kind of click through here, and you can look at these and just kind of identify what the rents are per unit. Maybe it's because they need to be renovated. Maybe it's because the owner just is kind of absentee. A lot of times what I would do is come in here, seeing that those rents are low, take a look at the owner. John Petrobon. These also could be, you know, low income housing, assisted homes, assisted, that kind of thing, where maybe they're getting rent assistance or something like that that's not showing up in here. But, you know, so we can kind of take a look at what other properties this individual owns. You know, so again, this is just another area we can come through and say, okay, you know, these are underpriced. Let's go back to units. Retirement community, that's why. So they are, you know, likely assisted living for one reason or another, but doesn't mean that there's not opportunity there. So yeah, so you can kind of click through and figure that out, but this is just in this specific submarket. So you can come in, look for those that are underpriced under the filters tab. And we're looking at effective rents, or you can look at asking rents if you want as well. I'm wondering why this is 56 properties, 32 properties. I feel like there's something not quite right here. Yeah, so somewhere in there, there's a thing that's not quite working right, but affordable. So this will tell you as well. So if we go into market rent, that might be another one too, to keep us out of the affordable housing areas. Back to 1 bedrooms, 51 properties. I don't know. This just doesn't feel right to me, because I'm looking for 1 bedrooms that are between this range. Asking. Yeah, I don't know why it's telling me that, but oh, because it's going to give me all. I don't know why though. It allows me to specify. Either way, this gives you kind of a way to figure out. You know, we can kind of go through. I mean, we're looking at 28 properties here. You know, you can put it all together. We can go ahead and export these results, and you can specify what fields you're exporting. So you can export them all and then kind of in Excel mess around with them a bit. But this is a way to figure out those properties that are under market rents. So yeah, so you've got the markets, then you've got the rents. Let's go back into map view. Clear out some of these filters here. Get rid of that. Done. So I can come in here as well, and I can look at these like 213 properties if I'm looking at an area. Another way you can do that, besides those submarket reports. So if you had specifically, if you were looking at those properties that were under, you know, 150 units, you know, so now we narrowed that down to 134 properties. Maybe you want those that are minimum, you know, 25 units. And then from here, we can go in and click the analytics tab. So of these 90 properties that are between 25 and 150 units, this will tell us what the average rent is there on these specific properties. And then, so it's going to quickly run analytics on specifically these properties. And then now I can come in and say, okay, on these properties, which ones are under market rent? So if the market on average is 1,071 per unit, now I can come in and look at those properties that are under that 1,071 per unit. And this is your history as well. So this shows you kind of the tracking of what, you know, average rents, 2004, 2021. So it shows you how it's jumped up as well. So you kind of see the trend as well, because this can help you too. If you're seeing like, you know, in the last year or 2 years, it went from like 900 to 1,500. Even if it's still under market rent, you're gonna have a hard time, you know, raising rents another $500 a unit without losing everybody.
Yes, same.
Yeah. So, but this kind of lets you know, like you can see the trends of how it's been going up over time, what that's been looking like, you know, and kind of figuring that out. So you can see the percent of growth year over year for each quarter. 2010. So here's your recession, 2009, 2010. Goes into Q, 2011. So I mean, you kind of follow these trends. It's going to follow exactly the economic cycles. You can see the rent growth, the percentage of vacancy. So whether or not they have more or less vacancy over time, it's probably jumped up a bit because they've raised rents in the market as a whole. So you can see a lot of different patterns here of what you're getting. Under construction, 140 units hit the market here in 2021. Yeah.
That's good stuff. One more thing. You said how on a broad scale, you were saying how you can find the best markets in the United States like that.
Yep. So that's right back here. So I just click back over to this other tab. So under the market section again. So back in here, we're in multifamily. Let's just go back out to the USA. Oh, that's always gets funky. So here we can come in, we can look at United States. We can go into filters, go in location, United States. Done. All right, so we have the 40 markets as a whole in the United States. And then from here, we can go back into that list view. We're in multifamily, and this will tell you now, we can kind of click through and we can say, okay, we want to look for net absorption. We can look for the rent growth again. We can look for job growth in an area, right? Because if there's more jobs or the population growth, that's definitely a good market there as well. If there's the population is growing, there's going to be a need for more multifamily, which is going to just trickle down. So whatever indicators you're looking for, and I guess that's the part that I can't really provide for you, is I can tell you these are one of the things I'm naming are indicators that other investors or other owners are looking for. But that's the part I can just help you find how to interpret the data. So yeah, but those are some of the things you look at. You can look at job growth, you can look at employment population growth, income growth, any of those pieces there, sorting that out. So in this case, St. George, Utah would be a good market because there's a lot of population growth. We can look at 12-month absorption in units. Let's go ahead and scroll over. So since now we have this, now from here, we can secondarily go and say, okay, let's look at the net absorption, 160 units in a market that has 3,300 units. So it's a smaller market, St. George, Utah. Rent growth is pretty high, 12.5%. So a lot of times what we're going to do is kind of compare these to the national. See, I think this tells us the national. So yeah, here's your national index. So under national, then from here, we can look at, asset value. We can go and take a look at, say, net absorption, 12-month absorption units. National index. No, it's not going to give me, it's going to give me a percentage. I want percentages. Rent growth. We'll go with rent growth there. Phoenix, Arizona.
So what is it saying? It's saying cumulative rent growth saying 87% of everything. Or what's explain that to me real quick.
It's a very good question. I don't know what this is saying. Cumulative rent growth.
Over 10-year time frame.
I guess that doesn't seem.
Oh, it says yeah. I guess 12.
Yeah.
2012.
Yeah. So this is say 3 years. Yeah. So this is going to be like over the 10 years. So this is over like the last year, cumulative rent growth in the last year.
Cumulative mean over all multifamily.
Yeah. Or all multifamily in that time frame.
All classes.
Multifamily specifically.
Like A, B, C, and D class. Like no matter what quality property is, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so these are just different ways to, there's just a million different ways to interpret the data, but yeah, so rent growth, cumulative. So this is basically instead of just a straight percentage, occupancy growth, market rent and occupancy. Let me get out of this.
Does it break down even? I'll say it does city. Okay, cities. That's fine.
Yeah.
Right.
So and these are markets.
Okay.
So that's each of these are the markets. So like Dallas Fort Worth, that would be that market.
Okay.
But really, what I'm trying to identify here, there we go, the national index. So here's your national index down there at the bottom. So when I'm looking at rent growth, annual rent growth, I want to be above that national in 9.7% growth on a national level. So essentially we're looking for those that are performing better than average. So if average is 9.7 on rent growth, and I'm looking at population growth here. So say I'm looking, and I'm going to organize these in which markets have the highest population growth. If the average population growth of the US, the national is 0.2%. So I mean, pretty much anything that's growing is good, but we're looking at these that are 3.1% population growth. Then I can kind of come over here and now look in comparison to the national index. What are we looking at here as far as rent growth, 12.4% and compared to the 9.7%. So that might be a good one. Stabilized vacancy rates, pretty high vacancy rate actually for the amount of rent growth. So they probably just have a lot of, here there's a lot of properties that have been delivered. So there's a lot of new construction because of the growth that's happening there. So there's a lot of speculation already happening in St. George, Utah. Boise, Idaho, that I definitely am aware of, is very much growing super fast. There's a lot of companies that are moving into that area. Joe, who just popped off this call, is in Boise. He's our Boise rep. So, and that's all that everybody's talking about. So you can see here is like, okay, rent growth 7.5%. It's a little lower than the national average, but it's a smaller market. So you kind of use this information to sort of interpret what's happening in the marketplace and whether or not that's a good area to invest in. You're looking at, sometimes these areas where there's a lot of population growth, the incomes are higher in Boise than they are in like St. George, Utah, Provo, Utah. You've got even higher, income levels. which is, a good sign for rent growth. 12%, probably because higher income people are moving in the area. So that's another indicator that you might want to look at is, median household income growth. Orlando, Florida, more wealthy people are moving into the area. So, so there's a lot of different features. So whatever your areas are that you're looking at, that's how I would kind of, looking at this information. And you can come in under the filters and narrow that down. So maybe I only want to find, so I'm not looking at 800 different, or 40 different markets. You may want to come in here and under the filters, I might want to say, I'm only looking for, rent growth percentage minimum of market, whatever the national index was, which was 9.5% or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So now I only want to look at those markets that are above market. And then from here, now I can then filter and search all these different, pieces as well. Yeah, so the national index is 9.7. But, so I can come in and say, I only want to find those, let's just say a 10% minimum. So now all we're doing is just narrowing down. So now of all of the results, I can then come in here and look at population growth with the higher, income growth or rent growth. We can go to net absorption. Unfortunately, it's just units. I want net absorption by percentage. We don't have, because the units doesn't really mean a lot. Market sale, under construction, delivered units, inventory units, maybe vacancies. We want low vacancy, right? You don't want high vacancy areas because that means that there's more units or more inventory than there is. So here we've got Lewiston, Idaho. So you've got high rent growth, 11.4% rent growth. We have 0.4 population growth, but very low vacancy, which can be good. Usually low vacancy means you can go in and raise rents without too much risk because there's not a lot of other places to go because there's not a lot of inventory. So if you can find a property that's under market there, that's a good one. It's a very small market though. So maybe that's another filter you want, is you only want to look for markets that are of a certain size. So you can come in here and say, I want a minimum 1 million population. So now you're just looking at like larger markets. And here we go again. So now vacancy, Orange County, low vacancy. So all I'm doing is just kind of manipulating this information to narrow down the scope of what you're looking at, right? Because you don't want to necessarily go into a tiny market because it could be growing because of one, maybe like Bremerton, for example. Well, you're not in Seattle. It's a military base, and there's a lot of military contracts going on right now with the whole the whole infrastructure program that's going on. So there's a lot of contractors moving into Bremerton, so it's huge growth. But Bremerton's a small market here out of Seattle, and as soon as those government contracts are gone, all that growth is going to go away because those are all contractors that are there for temporary projects. So that's just kind of some of the things that I would look at. But again, so does that answer your question? I don't know.
It does. It does. I like it. Like it.
Kind of rambling a bit, but
no problem. I want to make sure I get the recordings. Good stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Right. Absolutely. Is there anything else while we're at it? I think we've kind of covered quite a few. You get the recording and you can kind of flip back and forth in there and take what you will. And if you do have anything that comes up, I mean, we did cover a lot because you get the recording, that'll work out. But usually I would split this into multiple different like little training sessions. So feel free to reach out again in another, couple weeks or a month or so after making some calls and that kind of thing. So really the goal is just to find, get you a good deal on something.
Mhm.
And then if you can't find anything on the one technique, then just move to the next one, the next one, the next one.
Exactly. Good stuff. I
Yep.
love it. Is there anything else that's it's on your mind? Like, you need to have this before you go. Anything else?
No, I mean, I think right now what you have is a pretty good understanding of what
Gotcha.
needs to be done. So stuff comes up. I'm sure I'll think of something. I mean, there are more strategies above and beyond this.
Okay.
But I don't really want to muddy the waters too much. Like there's a lot that we've just covered. And like CMBS stuff, loan, it's a whole nother ballpark. So
All right, we'll do another call for loans. I'm gonna put on schedule. Call you
yeah,
about loans.
exactly. So, but yeah, so I think that's a pretty good.
Oh, that's what. How long will it take? Like loans come and due. How long will it take?
I mean, I can just show you real quick here.
Okay, because I know right now when the interest rate just rise and so forth for the rise soon. I know it's big right now.
So this is where it's gonna get kind of tricky here. So under loans, so we've got different types of loans. So the loans that we have the most information on are what we call CMBS loans, commercial mortgage-backed securities.
Mhm.
So, and I think I may have touched on that during our initial demo. We go into, let's go back into the filters. So I just went into multifamily. Let's go back into location. I don't want market, I want. No, I want this. Just United States. Markets. And I want all. Okay. Sorry, I just want to, this is just map wise.
Mhm.
I don't know what that is though. There we go. Okay, so now we're just in the US, all markets, all data. Get rid of this. Sorry, I'm just United States. Whatever. Okay, the other ones aren't going to come up anyway. So under loan tab here, I can come in and if I click active, that's going to show me all the properties that are multifamily that have a CMBS loan on them. So now we have 42,000 properties. From here, I can come in and I can look for those that have maturity dates. So like maybe I want to find those that are maturing within the next year. The reason that's important is these are properties that have to make a decision. They're either refinancing or they need to sell it. So those are good opportunities there. You can add that, these 2,400 properties, we can then take that and like narrow down even more by, we can say, okay, those that are under, no minimum, maximum under 200 units. So now there's 1,400 properties that our loans are maturing within the next year. We can come in and look at what their interest rates are. So maybe we want to look for anybody who's, below a certain interest rate, maybe somebody who's above a certain interest rate, whatever that may be. You can look at it, prepayments. So maybe we don't care necessarily about maturity date. Let's get rid of maturity date, but we want to make sure that they can, that they have the ability. So we're going to go to open. So I want to find anybody who can basically sell without a prepayment penalty or anything like that. Again, you can look at rents. The other thing we can do is if I get rid of prepayment options and I just go in, I can look for performing. So what I can do is come in and look for those that are delinquent. So maybe any of these, maybe these that are in default and foreclosure. So here's 173 properties that are, having a hard time paying their bills one way or another. So like here's one in Seattle. But yeah, so you can come through and you can take a look at these. So they're, most likely they're going to be on a watch list. Let's see here, we can kind of come in. There's probably even some here in Dallas, Fort Worth. There you go. The Zhang apartments.
Mm.
So I can come in here. So because this has a CMBS loan, when I'm looking at the property details, I can go into loan tab. And what this is going to tell me is what's going on here. So current status is in yield maintenance. Here's the commentary. Asset transfer to special servicing effective 2020 due to monetary default. The borrower failed to make any payments since 2020. Expiration of forbearance. Borrower is working with the special servicer to bring the loan current. It's in the process of selling the property. The sale is set to end of May of 2022, so represent a full payoff. So basically, somebody's buying this property out for what they owe, going to pay it off. So this is in the middle of what's happening there. So but you can see here is modification, delinquency, watch list. You can see their commentary on that. We can see all commentary of what's happened in the past. This one obviously is already going to be is already being sold, but supposed to close in May. If it hasn't closed yet, that would be one I would reach out and be like, hey, if it fell through, I might be interested. But they probably
Who I'll contact on that one?
Sorry, let me go back in there. I mean, in honesty, on something like this, you could contact, I mean, any parties involved.
Anybody. So who want to buy
Yeah, any of the parties involved are going to be, in there. So in this case, you have KeyBank as the special servicer, Red Mortgage Capital. Don't worry about them. Freddie Mac, no big deal. I would just go into contacts. You've got your recorded owner right now. So WSP Zhang LLC, contacts. I don't have any information there. This could be also because it's in the process of updating in our system. So I would probably go into Brian Lasky and be like, hey, can you find out who on this property I need to get a hold of?
Oh, okay, he'll do it for me.
I mean, but yeah, you could go to Walker Holder. Yeah, property management, Zhang Apartments. I would reach out. I mean, any of these people can point you in the right direction.
Okay.
But under the loan section here, usually what you can find is by since 2021. So this may have already gone through. But under the loan section here, usually you can find, under the special servicer would be the one who I would reach out to. So in this case, it'd be KeyBank, depending on who's running this, right? So if this information is, this was transferred to special servicing, so that's who I would reach out to. The servicer is basically who's managing the loan itself. Originator is irrelevant.
Okay.
But then you can come in and you can see financials on these as well. That's another important piece of these CMBS loans, income and operating expenses. But yeah, so that's, I actually should have just clicked through, but these are properties. You can add additional filters or anything, but under the loan section, so if I go under filters, click on the loan section here, I want to start with active, and then I want to come through and you can look at financials, bankruptcies, you can look at defaults here. We can go to those that are on a watch list currently, special servicing currently. If you have any questions on those, just arrow over the exclamation point. Loans become distressed, placed in a special servicing. Commentary is provided for explanation. Watch list. Watch list are potential distress that are placed on a watch list. So these are not quite yet at a special servicer, meaning like a large tenant moved out or something like that. That's what will happen there. So we can go under, these, pay statuses, maybe 30 days is a bit aggressive. So, but the point is, like, we can kind of look at those that are getting close. Maybe we don't want it already in foreclosure, or maybe you only want to find those that are in foreclosure. So there's 2 properties in this here in Mississippi that are in foreclosure. So you can kind of come in and look at those and get some more information there. So that's the loan piece. Do you have any questions about that?
I like that.
Yeah. So that's another area.
I'm getting more of a data geek, so I enjoy data.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot here. The CMBS piece. So just to take note. So of the things that we've covered today, majority of that stuff, not a lot of people are doing it. And I guess that's the biggest thing to keep in mind is a lot of what we just went over there. I mean, there are other people out there, there are other Costar reps who are sharing those techniques and tricks, but not a lot. And even then, I can tell you, of all the times that I've shared it with owners and brokers, not a lot are actually doing it. So, so my point is, pick one that you think makes the most sense, or start with one, make a few calls. If you feel like you're not getting anywhere, go to the next one. But I mean, you got to give it a chance. But once you refine and figure out, okay, I've had success with this, then just replicate that, and you can find more properties that way.
Gotcha.
So that's really my biggest thing, is just, kind of take one that, resonates the most with what you're looking for, and then go through the list and do that. And if for some reason you go through a few of these and you're not having any success, reach out to me and we'll reconnect and, kind of refine the plan, get some new ideas.
Good. It's good stuff. I like it.
Cool. All right.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah. Well, I just realized I've been misspelling your name on all my emails. So
it's okay.
Same thing.
It's okay. It's okay. We're fine. We're good. I'm not offended.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you, man. I'm looking forward to the email. To the email. So you send it to me as soon as possible. I go through it. Start doing it.
This is we've been on here for an hour and a half, so it's going to take a minute to render. So it'll take a few, but as soon as it's finished, I'll send it over.
All right, thank you so much, man, for your time.
Yep,
Thank you for
no problem. Have a good one, Cornelius. Bye-bye.